Okay. All right, I'm just going to navigate to the slideshow. Okay. There we go. Okay, could I get a thumbs up if you're able to see the webinar screen? Okay, thank you very much. Okay, so welcome again to the May ECEF webinar. I'm happy to have you all here today. I think it will be a little bit of a smaller group, which is no problem to those that can make it. I'm glad to see that you're here. And some of you I've connected to recently in our grantee check-in meetings, which has also been lovely. And I encourage all of you who have not signed up to meet with me regularly to go and click on the schedule a meeting with me button on the ECEF portal, and I'll talk about that again at the end. I'll go to the next slide. All right, so I'll just do a little overview of our agenda for today. So we did just little welcome as people get logged on. We're going to do a short icebreaker, and then Dana Castano and I will share about professional learning opportunity, an upcoming webinar that we thought might be of interest to our grantees. And then we have evaluation team updates from Lorelei and Alexis. And then Karina Guzman Ortiz will be joining to do some engagement around the development of the Birth to 5 early literacy program. So that will be focused on the development of the program, which will be after this year of the one-time funding. So we'll clarify that later on when she is introducing the engagement. Let's see. And yeah, then we'll have from 12 to 12:15, you can stay to ask questions. And I just got a question from Dana to make sure that I shared the sign-in sheet. And I did put it in the chat once, but let me put it in there again really quickly. Thank you for the reminder. So I just put in the chat again the sign-in sheet for the webinar so that your attendance here is recorded. So again, if you have any issues accessing that, just let me know.
Hi, good to see you again.
Hi, thanks for being here. Okay, all right, so we will go to the next slide and do our little icebreaker. So here's the sign-in sheet again. I put it in the chat, and then this is kind of to remind me to make sure to include it. Oh, and I'm gonna just mute. I think a few of you came unmuted, so I'm just gonna see if I can mute you. So just a little reminder, please try to, if you notice that you're unmuted, mute yourself just so that we don't get overlap of noise during the meeting. And if you have a question, you can always unmute and ask. Okay, so today's icebreaker, I've been choosing to do icebreakers where we basically I'll pose a question and everyone can kind of waterfall their responses in the chat. And then I'll ask if anyone wants to come off mute and share their answer in a non-pressurized way. So whoever is interested in sharing verbally is welcome to, but you do not need to. So today's icebreaker, I thought it would be fun to ask everyone about a happy place for them. So the thought is, or the question is, what is somewhere that you consider to be your happy place? It could be a physical place that brings you peace and joy, or an activity that you do that elicits a similar feeling. And if you want to also share why that place is special to you or helps to bring a sense of peace, you could also add the why. So as you're starting to write your responses in the chat, I'll share a happy place for me is a beach in Bellingham called Clayton Beach. And It is, I don't remember the first time I went there when I was younger, but it was definitely a lot younger. I remember climbing on the rocks. Um, Now there's a lot of college students that use the rocks for bouldering, but it wasn't as used in that way before, but it has really neat, intricate designs on the rocks. And being on a beach with the expansiveness of the ocean always just like centers me and brings me a sense of peace. And so that's my happy place that I wanted to share. So as people are taking a minute to write in the chat your responses, if anyone would like to share a place that's special to you or what you would consider your happy place. And it could just be on your couch with a book and a cup of tea. It doesn't have to be anywhere extravagant, but I'd love to hear from whoever would like to share. I'm seeing lots of responses coming in the chat. And I also just put, I know we have some people just join us, so I put the sign-in sheet again into the chat for everyone. So I'm going to read some of what people wrote. Ooh. All right. So Dana loves hot tubs, hot baths, relaxing, calming, and refreshing. Lindsay, happy place is the coast, loves walking on the beach. Annabelle, the beach. It sounds like beach and water theme is going on in this group. Yep, connecting with nature, relaxing. Jackie, enjoy the beach. Amy, Bay, Ocean, Spit in Tillamook County, amazing beauty and peacefulness. Brandon, in the forest hiking or playing music alone. Those are great. Central Oregon, because we're headed to a conference there now. Great. Love that. It sounds like nature and the ocean are a big theme. I'm just scrolling through. Does anyone want to come off mute and share anything about their happy place? Jeff, being absorbed in a good book is a happy place. Of course, the beach is hard to beat. Happy place is at home with the kiddos. Yeah, that's a great one. Okay.
I'll share just because I totally sent it to Dana directly instead of share all, which
Yeah.
I meant
Oh,
to.
yeah. Please do.
Hi everyone, my name is Flor. I work with Essie in the CDC. And my happy place is my couch. We have a very large couch. Like I'm a big person, my human is a big person. We're like he's 6'1" and I'm 5'7", 5'8". And so this couch is so comfy and huge that we can both like lay across it and our feet don't dangle. So that's pretty special for me. The dog and our cat decide to just love each other and all be on top of it together. It's just like a really nice, like take a moment and kind of soak it in that it's just so calming and lovely. So yeah, that is like my perfect special happy place.
Thank you so much for sharing, Floor. Yeah, I think sometimes the simple pleasures of like being at home and having a cozy spot are some of the most important and meaningful. So anyone else would like to share before we move on? Okay. Thank you all very much for participating. And we will move on to the next slide. So quick question. Are you also seeing faces on the right side? Is it blocking the view? No? Okay. I just want to be sure. There we go. Okay, so I wanted to share about a professional learning opportunity that has come about from the Children's Institute. They reached out to Dana and I, and they're hosting a webinar on May 22nd. So coming up here pretty soon, and it's just an hour long. It's from 12 to 1 p.m. And so I thought I'd just share the focus of the webinar, and I included the link, which I can also put in the chat, and it will be sent out in the webinar recap as well. So the webinar is called Equipping the Field, Evidence-Based Practices for Children Birth through Grade 3 to share out evidence-based resources that were curated by the Northwest Regional Education Lab. So then I went to the registration link, and there was a little more in-depth description. And so they said this presentation will elevate the importance of an intentional focus on early literacy strategies for early childcare providers, educators, and families. And then they're also going to explore the implications of the new funding heading to the early learning hubs and available for Early Childhood Equity Fund, so all of you to apply to in the coming months. So there's some specific information and dialogue that you might be interested in relevant to the funds that I know many of you are excited to get the application for once it's out in the coming months. So the link is down below. I'm going to, let's see, I'll put it in the chat once we move on to the next piece, because someone else will be presenting, because I don't want to mess up the screen sharing that's happening to go to the link, but I will put it
I did put it in the chat already,
Oh.
Emma, so you're good.
Awesome, thank you. When I'm sharing screen, it makes me a little less connected to everything else that's going on. Okay, thanks, Dana. So yeah, I encourage you, if you're able to go, it sounds like a great opportunity. I'm going to try to go myself. So I will likely see you there if you're able to join. So that brings us next to the ECEF evaluation updates from Lorelei and Alexis.
Thanks, Emma, and it's good to see everyone. We just have some brief updates today. Next slide, please. So mostly what we want to do actually is just offer a gigantic congratulations to all of you, and so much gratitude. The soft rollout has, I mean, really, for lack of a better word, like blown our minds. It's completely exceeded our expectations. You all have done such an amazing job of trying out these tools and supporting data collection. So as of today, we have 20 out of 25 grantees who have submitted data, and this pretty huge sample size of 350 families. So this is just something that I wanted to make sure that we make some space to celebrate. I think it is such testimony to the strong relationships that you all have with the families that you work with and the incredible work that you're doing. I mean, I was like, bro, how do you do this virtually? Like, can we have like a round of applause? I mean, this is just so amazing. It truly is. See, this is where virtual is just so inadequate. I want to hear clapping. Yes. Oh, right. We can use these weird new features we have in Zoom. So the other thing that we wanted to bring to your attention is the great feedback that we're hearing on both the tools and the process. So this is another thing that is just kind of exceeding expectations here. We are hearing feedback that families have been expressing a lot of appreciation for the questions and for the chance to give feedback, and also that staff have been expressing appreciation for the feedback and starting to really think about how to put it to good use. So this is exactly what we would hope would happen, right? And so often doesn't happen. I think it really speaks to the lessons we are all learning here together about how important it is to make sure that evaluation is in fact led by and designed by the communities themselves. So again, I just wanted to offer such a gigantic kudos to the evaluation leadership group for leading this whole process and really holding the vision for all of us over the past going on 2 years now, as well as to all of the grantees for supporting what is sounding like such an affirming data collection process for families. I really am just kind of amazed by the whole thing. So thank you, thank you, thank you. Alexis and I have been laughing a little bit about, oh, this was the trial run, right? Where, okay, we're just going to see how it goes. This is amazing. When it's time for the official data collection next year, I think we are all going to be absolutely ready to do this. And I'm so, so excited to see the findings. Next slide, please. So just to keep everybody updated on next steps for the soft rollout, we're working very hard. I shouldn't say we, it's really Alexis is working really hard right now on data entry. So getting all of that data entered into SPSS. June and July, we will be doing analysis. So that's the statistical analysis as well as looking at the qualitative data. Families wrote in lots and lots and lots of comments. And so that's going to be an incredibly rich source of much more nuanced data. I mean, we know the quantitative data is always really important, especially for demonstrating to folks like legislators the outcomes that we're all looking for here. But the qualitative analysis is going to just make it so much richer and really add that level of meaning that I know is important to everybody here. And speaking of meeting, we will be working with the evaluation leadership group this summer to do that co-interpretation process together. So starting to look at what themes are emerging. Whoops, I'm seeing somebody's screen. Is everybody else seeing that? It went away. Yes, so starting to pull out the themes that seem to be emerging from the data and thinking about what's going to be most important to really focus on. In August, we'll be doing report writing, and then in September-ish, August-ish, we will submit our interim report with the preliminary findings with DELC, and then, of course, with all of you. So that's what's coming up in the next couple of months. Next slide. The other thing we wanted to update all of you on is the co-design process that is ongoing for the child outcome tool. So the pilot testing process has wrapped up, and we are now working through all of the feedback that we got from staff and families with the evaluation leadership group so that we can collectively decide where to make revisions based on that feedback. Overall, the feedback has been pretty positive, so that was very encouraging. Staff and families said that it seems like the right set of items, that it doesn't seem too hard to complete. And we did hear a lot of positive feedback on the framing and the wording throughout. Again, I think along the same lines as the caregiver tools, this real effort to be affirming and supportive throughout the data collection process, rather than data collection that is sometimes experienced as evaluative or judgmental somehow. The goal is to finalize the tool by June, and then it will be ready to go live in the next program year. And again, Alexis will be meeting with each one of you, much in the way that he did over the past 6 months or so, to get prepared for adding the child level data collection to the caregiver level data collection, so that we'll be ready to go with both next April in 2025. Next slide. So those are our updates. We just wanted to put up this link to the evaluation updates page. You can also find updates there. And of course, as always, if you have any questions, you just want to chat, please do reach out to either one of us. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lorelei. Are there any questions for her or Alexis before we move on? There will also be time for questions at the end of the webinar today. Okay. It sounds like we are good to continue. So I think Karina, come off mute if you were able to join the meeting. I just want to make sure. She was having some technical difficulties. But
I'm here if y'all
okay.
can. Okay, there. Okay,
Yes. So
I managed.
okay, good. So I'm
Good
going
to.
to stop sharing my screen. I'm going to pass it over to Karina, who's going to lead some engagement.
Yeah, I have. Let me see if I'm on the browser, so this looks very different.
Okay.
But are you able to see my screen? Do you see my slide deck, or do you see yourself?
I see your slide deck and I see people at the top, but that's totally fine.
Oh, interesting.
The screen sharing is always funny like that.
Yeah, I think I'm just gonna roll with it because I'm on the browser, so it looks very different. But it's good to be with you all again. Gusto verlos otra vez. I am here to, I don't know if that changed anything. I'm just clicking buttons. Here to give a quick overview. The Birth Through 5 literacy plan development and where this work stands. I know you all have been hearing from us for some time around, when this was a concept prior to legislation, and then the ongoing conversations around this work. So I just wanted to pop in and give a brief update on where this stands, and then just take some time also to lean into conversation with you around literacy development that will help inform the plan that we're working on. So I will also say I might not, this is a big bill, right? HB 3198 has an ODE component, and then there's a DELC component. And so I might not have all of the questions. In fact, answers. I will not have all of the answers, but Emma is helping me take notes, whatever questions we don't have the answers to make sure that we can come back and address those for you all as well. So I'll go into the next one here. All right, it's working. This was just a quick overview. I know Alyssa joined maybe a couple months ago. Pooja might have also joined to give an overview of this. So this is really just a recap, but the Department of Early Learning and Care, right? We're doing the Birth Through 5 literacy plan, and there are some grants that are attached to this. And then Oregon Department of Education, ODE, is in charge of the early literacy success school grants, which are going out. Those were, I believe, non-competitive grants going on to the different, all of the districts. And I believe all districts opted in on those. And then they also have the Early Literacy Success Tribal and Community Grants. So those are two different grants. And these two bullets essentially they're all different grants, but they're also under different offices over at ODE. And all of this is under the same bill. So hence saying there's different components of it. There's different people working on each one of these, and why I know I won't have all of the answers to this. This is what is in the budget note. This is what DELC is directed to do, right? So we are directed to develop the Birth Through 5 literacy plan 2, and then you'll see those 3 bullets that explain what this plan intends and is expected to do. And so some of that is expand culturally specific early literacy programs for birth to age 5, provide the training and coaching in early literacy for direct service staff, right? So that this is another one. And then develop and expand language revitalization efforts by the federally recognized tribes within Oregon's boundaries. And then we had to submit a report to the legislature back in December. So this is where this bill, for us, it's different, right? This legislation passed during the 2023 long legislative session. And we were asked to come back to the legislature and say, here's our plan for the $9.4 million prior to them releasing those dollars. So that is different than ODE, for example, where they received the money up front for the district grants. And that's why they have been able to distribute those dollars out the door in a more, in a speedier fashion, because we actually had to go to the legislature and say, here's our plan. And then during the short session earlier this year, present that plan, get support from the legislature for them to release the funding. And so with the release of that funding, we have been working on the request for applications and some contract amendments to get those dollars out. So I just wanted to clarify that. I know that there's been some confusion about, well, where's the money? Well, we were just on a different process and a different timeline than ODE was. So this is a quick timeline. Let me see if there's what do I want to highlight here. I think, we're currently in that May and June section, which is the releasing the RFA, looking at releasing this RFA for new and that new grantees would be eligible, as well as current equity fund grantees, amending early learning hub agreements, looking at the different data and research that we've compiled, including the equity fund evaluation, for example, right? Just the different data and research that we have from the different programs, and also previous engagement, but looking at that through with an early literacy lens to inform the engagement that we are doing and moving forward with. And then hiring, I believe that our literacy specialist positions have finally been approved by the Department of Justice, just that whole process. So these should be posted in the coming weeks is our understanding, and continuing to work on the project plan. As we move into the fall, we are hopeful to have continued engagement on this as well, to inform a plan that we need to submit to the legislature once more at the end of this year, so in December of 2024. And once we have that, then we'll have to, we'll have a program design, and we can then move into developing rules. So that's a lot of pieces, right? But I like this little arrow visual because it says we're doing engagement that will inform our Birth Through 5 plan. That plan will define the program model for the early literacy program, and that program model will inform the rules. And what are those rules? What are the expectations for the grantees or the contracts, or how are we going to spend the dollars essentially, and what is eligible there? So this is kind of the plan of action, and it's taken time, and we've been trying to sort it out, right? Like, it took some time to understand also what is the bill actually asking us to do, and what are we expected to do, and what is the governor's expectation also under this work. So I spoke a little bit about the funding. So we received the funding, Kindergarten Readiness Partnership and Innovation Program, KPI, also known as the Early Learning Hubs across the regions, are receiving grant amendments in the total of $4.7 million. They're doing this redistribution formula, and then you'll see here kind of what they're expanded and doing in some of that work, right? And so this expands on some of the existing work that they're doing. And they were asked to, of course, also continue collaborating with other partners in their districts, and we're sharing, this information with other entities as well, just so that folks know that yes, the hubs are receiving some of this funding, and you can partner with them. You can reach out to them and ask, how are you supporting, the community with this additional funding? How can we partner together? I think is the most important question there. And then we have the Early Childhood Equity Fund grants, which is, we're still using this name, but as you might be aware, because this is a competitive process, because these grants are open, and what's the way I'm looking? The grants are open for new and existing grantees. It is a competitive process, and therefore there's an application that needs to be completed, right? And so it's a request for application process instead, and this is what is allowing us to be able to bring on other grantees into this work. And you'll have this 2-starred activities here, which is the delivering early literacy resources and materials through parenting education and parent interaction activities, which you all are aware of and familiar with, and then that culturally relevant early literacy training and professional development activities for both early childhood and early grade educators. So what this bill has is also a component on this training piece, right, which we have heard is important and necessary as well. But we are leaning into conversations around, well, what is that training? Like, what has worked, and what do we need more of, right? What is there a need for? What is there a craving and desire for? And we'll continue doing some of that engagement piece, because the engagement is what is super important to help us define the plan. And so I just want to kind of tease, well, actually, before I do that, I'll go back to this one and just, I think I'll make a little plug for, because this is a request for applications and the applications aren't open yet, but I know Emma is here and has, probably been, and I'm sure all of you are curious, right? But the procurement process also puts us in an interesting place where we're under procurement, kind of like expectations, and there's certain things that sometimes we cannot share, or we just have to make sure that we're not giving a quote unquote competitive advantage to anyone in this process. And so I just kind of want to name and share that, because I think it puts all of us in this odd situation at times where, yes, we might have information, and then because of just our procurement expectations and the ethics and all of those pieces, that we might not be able to share. And so Emma, you might be hearing some of these questions, and I know that this is something that we'll just need to figure out what it is that we can share and when, and that might shift as we open up these applications, right? Because it's a competitive process, and I know that many of you might be interested in applying for these as well. Okay, the engagement component and why, because we are definitely looking at, we'll be developing a plan. And so the plan really is going to help us define what the program looks like. The funds that we are distributing right now are for this biennium, right? So they'll go through the end of June 2025, but we are not sure yet what the next cycle will look like. I mean, we don't know exactly if or how much money we'll have, and we also need to design a program and bring that back to the legislature, right? To say this is what our proposal for a program for additional and continued funding would be, and perhaps our opportunity also to ask for more. In order to just, for that plan design, we are connecting, of course, with our different partners, and that includes you all. This first phase is I have been focused on, and we're focusing on ensuring that we're connecting with families and caregivers, our in-home childcare providers, and our culturally specific partners as well, right? And those are our top 3 for this round of engagement. When we move into the fall, we'll be tapping once more our system partners, but we have ongoing conversations with them, right? We have standing tables with, just as this group, right? But we do have standing tables with our hubs. We have standing tables with other, like our preschool promise grantees, right? And so it doesn't mean that we're not connecting or hearing from them now. It's just recognizing that there's an opportunity for us here to hear more directly from some of the areas that we know we need to improve on. And what we're doing right now is really looking more like what when we think of literacy, it can be varied, and we all have a different idea perhaps of what that looks like, but we also have all seen different successful activities or stories on what that might entail. And so I'm really curious into leaning into that and being able to extract some of those success and enjoyable either activities or learnings to implement include in the plan, so that we can share and say, this is what community wants, this is what community is already doing, and what we need to make sure that we continue investing in. All right. I'm going to pause here. Do we have questions? I talked a lot. I'm going to stop sharing so I can see people. I think I can see people if I. All right, I'm not seeing questions because y'all are like, we know, Karina. But
I have a question for you.
Go ahead. Is that Shauna? Go ahead,
Yeah.
Shauna.
On the KPI dollars that's going to the hubs, is that going to go up to like kindergarten and first grade, or is it still 0 to 5 only?
Great question. Our dollars specifically are 0 to 5. In terms of the hubs, well, that's actually, I don't know. I'm gonna say I don't know. I'll bring back to you. And you're thinking, can you expand a little bit more on what you're thinking, maybe, Shauna, just to make sure that I can.
Well, because like the kindergarten, initiative, a lot of those kids are older coming into kindergarten now. So if they're focusing on, that kindergarten age, some of them are 6. And so if these dollars are 0 to 5, I was just curious how that would affect, like if they're in kindergarten, is that something that's okay still if they're like 6? Or do they have to be 5 when they start with us if it was for the KPI dollars?
Okay. I'll take that question back for sure. And what I do know, I think, because we're like on this spectrum, right? We're the 0 to 5, and then we have ODE, and the districts are also able to use those grant dollars that they receive. They're able to use that for summer learning, for example, or preschool programming. So they don't have a clear line that has to be kindergarten through 12. So I know that that's there. I can't speak specifically to where or if there's a line on the KPI. So I'll make sure to bring that back though. I'd want to check with our hub coordinators on that.
And then do you know what districts actually receive those funds? So like if there's certain with.
Yeah, my understanding is that all of the districts across that there were no districts that declined the non-competitive grants. So all districts should have received additional funding through this. It's just going to vary on, how much. I think there was a specific formula that was used for that, but I understand that all districts have received early literacy funding. No one wanted to turn that money down, and it really connects with work that many districts are already doing. So,
perfect. Thank you.
I wrote down your question just so you know. I'm helping Karina take notes. So.
Yeah, but that's a great thing, right, Shauna? Like just to be able to ask and within your community and checking in with your districts around where are some of these investments going? How can we partner? Right, is another question perhaps there too of how can we support each other in this work, because there are a lot of overlapping activities as we recognize in several communities.
Yes, and so you said that the districts could use it for summer programming, so they've already received their funds.
Yes, the districts have received their funds. Yeah, and again, just because their funding was actually released at the conclusion of the last legislative session, and so they've had some time to kind of create those different formulas and send out those different dollars. So they've sent out those funds through ODE. But if it would be helpful to have a contact, I'll also, we can also share that back, Shauna, if you have questions around some of those district specific components.
Okay, thank you.
Great. Not seeing other questions, I'd love to just kind of keep the conversation open. I had a Padlet that I wanted to share because I really have there's, I think, 2 key questions that I'm coming with right now is around and wanting to know, when you think about early literacy, and we recognize that is, working with children, it also includes working with families, right? And it's at this stage and age, it's more than like the phonetics, right? And so I would love to tap into and lean into your expertise around what are some of the activities that support literacy development for children and families that you are most proud of. I think that would be really, really neat for us to hear. And to hear, what is it that they're asking for are 2 questions that I would love to hear. And I'd love to hear you share out loud, but also I'm sharing the Padlet here. And then the other side is the training component. I know that we hear this, y'all remember I was here a couple of weeks ago with the strategic planning conversation, and even through that, right, we heard a lot of needs around childcare providers specifically, but I think it's an example around the needs for more language accessible trainings, the needs for like they gave clear examples of the types of trainings that might be helpful. And so I want to come back to you with this question as well, because I recognize that this is, as community-based organizations and working within different entities that are, not everyone here is a childcare provider, that the needs, that there are training needs and desires, and want to be able to ask also, what has worked for you? What have you received that you or have just has been a great opportunity, but also what else would be helpful, whether it's tools, resources, training, that we can include, and that we can include that into our plan and the program development as we move forward. So open conversation, and I've tapped in the Padlet here for you to share. I will screen share how to, if you're not familiar with a Padlet, then I think I'll go ahead and just share. So you should be able to see this colorful little post-it note, and then these are the questions, right? These are my little headers, but these are the questions, and you can just kind of go on here and add comments onto these, or just add a note here as well, and then it'll populate it on here. Jamboard is, I love Jamboard, but Jamboard is going away, so they're forcing me out of it. So that would be an example, for example, and then others, you know, if you can like tap it, send a like, or add a comment onto that, right? If there's something that you want to add. So I would invite you to check into there. But also, I'd love to start with this question for folks. When you think about like the work that you've been doing and just the activities, and I really want to get a sense of what are you most proud of? Like what has been really exciting in the work that you know is supporting children's literacy development, right? And then you get to define what that means.
And Karina, I have one question that I don't know if maybe other folks might have too. Do you know if there's going to be like a limit of how much funding people can ask for?
Oh, that's a great question. I know we're still working on those RFAs. So Emma, do you know if we're setting funding limits?
I believe we will be, but I'm not sure how much detail around that we're supposed to share at the moment, since we're still in the process with procurement. But if there's a limit, it will be on the, like, explicitly on the application. And you'll have enough time to adjust and think about your proposal based on that limit. So I'm sorry that I'm unsure at this point how much detail I can share. And so, and it's in the works, it's not solidified. But yes, there will likely be a limit.
No worries. Thank you. Appreciate that.
Yeah, thank you for your question. Karina, I'm also happy that you're sharing Padlet with us, because I haven't used it before. And I'm very sad that the other option, what's it called?
I love Jamboard.
Yeah, Jamboard has been so great. So it's nice to get to learn a new one.
Yeah. Amy, I saw you come off mute.
Yeah, I do have a question. I'm just wondering, that money that's going to the hubs, is there any limitation on what that can be spent for? Is it supposed to be spent on systems level, kind of, you know, training around the whole county, or can it be spent on, you know, giving money to, you know, partnering with organizations to do services that involve early literacy?
I will have to get back on to you on that one specifically. They have a specific scope of work also around these additional dollars, and I'm not exactly clear on what that is. So Amy, I'll get back to you on that. Yes. And Emma, if you can just jot down who we're getting to. And so your question being rather, are they able to essentially contract out or grant some of that work?
Yes. Yeah. Just what limitations are the hubs under for how they can spend the 4.7 million that they're going to get?
Yeah. Thank you. I'll come back to that, and I'll say, you know, the hubs, their amendments also just range. They're kind of based on a formula of their current funding, and so I think the smallest grant, if I heard yesterday, it's like it's, you know, it's just proportional, and some of the hubs also said like, yeah, we can't spend that much money, so we don't need, however whatever the equation was working on. But our hub team has been working on those, and I don't have all of the details, but I believe their amendments are getting ready to go out the door as well.
Thank you.
I have a question in regards to that. So if our hubs do give out like subcontracts through this money, can an ECF grant apply for that too, even though the grantee is getting funded through ECF if it's a different program?
Hmm. Good
Because
question.
I've had KPI dollars in the past before I was an ECF grantee, through my hub for specific literacy programs that we ran. And so I was just wondering if they put out an RFP process with those KPI dollars, would I still be able to go after those too, even though I'm doing other programs with as an ECF grantee?
Okay. We'll take those questions. I think those are great questions. And to help us clarify also as we put out the RFA, that we have some of that information available. So
Yeah.
I don't have an answer, Shauna, but I think it's helpful for us to be able to just name that explicitly and check with procurement before so that we know. Yeah.
Right, thank you.
Yeah. I think that ties into her first question, which was about or the most recent question about the use of funds and whether on the KPI side they can contract out or will offer money through their own process. And so, yeah, that's where that, not conflict, but if they're allowed to do that, that's where there could be two possible funding streams for the same funds for ECEF grantees. So yeah, we will look into
And even the districts, right? Because districts
I know
also
there could be three.
procure. So
Yeah.
there's definitely funding, and it's, they got that funding directly, but the districts, for example, could also be contracting with other entities around, to help and support some of this work. So, yeah, I see some notes coming into the Padlet, so thank you. I would just really, really love to see and hear. And this is going to be an ongoing conversation.
I thought Padlet was ill because the PI is always interesting.
Thanks, Heather. And the piece of we're tapping into the, we've connected with Ed Northwest to support, they've supported ODE on the development of the early literacy framework. And so also tapping them for some of those just resources, right? And making sure that we're creating some alignment, of course, through the early literacy framework and also connecting with ODE in this work. ODE, and some of you might have seen this, ODE put out a survey and they did some initial engagement earlier this spring to inform their community-based toolkit that they'll be creating. And so we're also, we have requested that information, the analysis from the feedback and whatnot to inform our plan as well, because we know that there was a lot of references made there to the work that applies to early learning, right? Young children, to age 5, and that it's a spectrum, it's a continuum, that we don't just cut things off at age 5, to your point earlier, right, Shauna? So we're really trying to collaborate with ODE on this. It is fractured in the sense that there's different programs, there's different people behind each piece, right? And so I do just want to name that because I was in a meeting yesterday and folks were asking about another component, and it's like I'll have to touch base with them because somebody else is holding that knowledge. So just want to name that, but we'll keep working on the plan. Think as the funds go out the door and we are receiving some, there will be some deliverables there, of course, because that's how some of this procurement goes. But we'll also be looking into, what is that we're hearing, what are the experiences of families and children, and what are the some of the training needs that have been met, or that there is additional need to fund, right? And so I know that there's going to be a lot of questions for us in these next couple of months, but looking at just getting deep into it. I saw a comment here, Lorelei, around the research component. I'm going to take these resources back because yes, we're really thinking about how do we include this. And then I will also add, just make a little plug that the engagement, the feedback, the research review that we're doing for this component will also inform the revision of the early learning kindergarten guidelines and we're hoping to expand those, one, we'll expand those to 0 to 5, but 2, expanding those as a guide to working with children and families in community, right? And so as well, like that it doesn't just apply to the K2 system, but that they apply more broadly to the work that DELC does, because we are in different places, right? We're in different within different entities. We're in it's not all as structured as a kindergarten classroom. So we want to make sure that we are responsive to that and then including some racial identity development into that as well. So trying to braid many things together. All righty, I'm looking back here. Oral stories. I would love to hear around how I'm seeing the question around, what is that you're most proud of, or activities that are supporting, and, whatever thoughts or ideas are coming up in terms of how do you foster the oral story tradition right in the classroom, and what does that look like for families who maybe speak a different language, and would love to kind of just continue to capture those thoughts and reflections.
And also, if you have more time after this meeting, Karina, would they be able to still access the Padlet to add responses?
Yes, I'll leave the Padlet open. So if actually this is your Padlet, like
Okay.
ECEF. So if you want to
Yeah.
share this in whatever follow-up materials, I would be more than welcome. And people are, please, drop in there. And if you want to spend some time just chatting also, or if there's if you have a parent meeting or a staff meeting that would be that you'd be interested in kind of diving into this conversation more, let me know. I am more than happy to join. Just really want to make sure that we're capturing ideas, feedback, right? And that we are elevating what the staff, but families and community desires are around this literacy work within the context of early learning, for sure. That's me.
Yeah,
I will hand it back to you, Emma.
okay, great. Thank you all for listening, and those of you that had questions for Karina, and we're putting responses on the Padlet. We really appreciate your thoughts and feedback as we're working diligently to get guidance on the program development for the Birth to 5 Early Literacy Plan or program. So thank you very much. And so I'll share my screen one more time. Let's see. So, just give me one moment. Always takes a second. Oh, okay. I'm sorry. My computer is being very, very funny. Okay. All right, I'm having issues with my PowerPoint, so I'm just gonna verbally, without sharing my screen, I'll just wrap us up here. So I'm gonna go so I can look at the last slide. So yeah, thank you for participating. I think one thing that I wanted to make sure to mention today is that we have not at these webinars, at least since I've been here, and I think for a while beforehand, we haven't had translation into or interpretation into Spanish. We have just had, after the fact, we've had our slideshow and information translated. And I know that some of our grantees prefer Spanish as in our check-ins. And so I did some asking around, and I got the feedback that having simultaneous translation in Spanish would be really appreciated in these meetings. And so I wasn't able to pull that together for this meeting because it was a newer idea, like days before this meeting happened. But I just wanted to announce that we will, in the coming webinars, so starting in June, we will have an interpreter where you can tune into the channel, the live channel on our Zoom call, and I'll be learning how to do that myself because it'll be my first time hosting that on a Zoom call. And people who prefer or are more comfortable hearing the information in Spanish can click on that channel and hear everything that we're discussing in Spanish as well. So I'm excited to share that. I apologize that that hasn't been an option previously, and I do speak Spanish, but it's not perfect at the moment. And I think for me to say something in English and then translate it to Spanish would to do it consecutively like that would just make it so we could cover way less content in our webinars. So the best solution was to have someone simultaneously interpreting. So yeah, just want to share that update and remind you that our webinar recordings are now posted on our ECEF YouTube channel. And so I will always post the link in the recap email, but you can also reference the past webinars if there's something you're like, oh, I want to tune back into that to see a reminder. You can kind of look through what all has historically been uploaded and see what might be of interest to refresh on. So thank you very much for attending, and yeah, happy to have you all here today. If you would like to hang out and have any further questions, I will be here until 12:15. So have a wonderful rest of your day. And yeah, thank you for being here. Take care, everyone.